Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Four Seeds maiden live stream called The Nuts and Bolts of Leadership. So, we are going to run these live streams every week from 10 o'clock till 20 past 10, just a quickly weekly boost on what maybe leaders and business owners can use or need in their businesses to really be successful in this hybrid working place, knowing that life is exceptionally challenging for all leaders and business owners in this hybrid workplace. So we'll have me presenting for some weeks, and then we'll have amazing guest speakers coming in for some other weeks who will then be talking about certain topics that are of interest to us, but it will always be directed at leadership and business owners. But if you want a very specific topic covered, please put down your interests and comments, and we're happy to cover them. So, as I say, welcome to this maiden live stream, and I'm sure we'll have many more. So today we want to really talk about the 5 tips for the hybrid working place, knowing that the hybrid working place is here to stay. I think reality has settled in for us to know that we're not going to go back to the old way of doing business or working. We'll maybe shift to a remote working model, or a hybrid working model where either we'll be going back to the office 70% of the time, or we'll be working remotely for 70% of the time and then going to the office once a week, or like some companies have it 8 days a week, and you can choose which days it is. But that does make the whole working environment quite complex for leaders because things have changed. You don't see a person anymore so quickly. Communication has changed. So, yes, life has changed with the hybrid working place. Puts a huge challenge on organizations, structures, strategies, policies, procedures, how to manage all of this. And I think what's challenging for us is that we weren't prepared for this. It's not that we got a warning like the Y2K. We knew at least a year or two in advance that the turn of the century is happening, and we could prepare ourselves for it. Our systems, our invoices, and so it went. We could mentally and emotionally, as well as strategically, prepare ourselves for it. The hybrid working place is not something we could prepare ourselves for. It came overnight. I think we were all shell shocked. And now we've sort of adapted and have accepted that that's reality. And we know that it's there, and it's not going to change. So, knowing from the work that I do, either working as a coach or working within organizations, I'm picking up certain trends that I can see are going to dominate the hybrid working place. And I'd love to share those with you today. So let's start off with tip number 1, which is communication. And prior to the pandemic arriving, communication within organizations was always challenging, and I guess will always be a challenging process. To be honest, I have never met an employee who has told me I have been over communicated to. Quite the contrary. We always have people saying, I am not being communicated to. I don't know. Nobody told me. So communication remains a critical component within organizations. However, in the hybrid working place, it is now even more. It's escalated dramatically. Because how do you ensure that you are communicating synchronous and equal to all the people within your organization? Some of them are working shift work. Some of them are in global different locations, so they work at different times. Sometimes a person is working on a project, so they're not ready to read your email. Some people just get so many emails that yours might get lost, so they need a different form of communication. So, right now, leaders have to really, really dig deep and increase and scale up that level of communication. And previously, as I said, communication was key. You were maybe looking at repeating a communication message to your team 5 times? Because you saw them face to face, there was a social interaction and a social understanding, obviously collaboration, and also reading of body language. Now that has lost its process quite a bit. So, hence, the number of communication has dialed up to 12 times. The same message needs to be shared with your team up to 12 times for them to actually understand it and be with you on that journey. Now, I know that sounds exhausting, but we are all so overloaded and so overwhelmed with information that we quite quickly don't hear or think we hear or miss something. So you can understand where the 12 times comes from. How do we do it? We need to use emails, WhatsApp, voice messages, videos, use all kinds of resources that are available to you to share the same message to your team over and over, really making sure they are with you on the journey. So that's tip one. Tip two is really about checking in with your team. And I know as leaders, you're going, I don't have time for this right now. I'm already so stretched with all the additional work because I know the workload has increased as well as the pace of work has increased. But coffee chats are critical. Having 5 or 10 minutes check-in meetings with your team individually, might I say, is absolutely critical. And it doesn't become a wish list item where you go, oh, if I can, I'll do it. It actually becomes a must do because people are right now really struggling emotionally and psychologically with this new hybrid working model. As much as it's said that it brings in work-life balance and it works for us, there is a dark side to it or a negative side to it. And we've all experienced it where we are working beyond the normal working hours. We are always have our phones or our laptops at the disposal of our fingertips. And we are definitely working longer hours, sacrificing personal time, perhaps even family time, or the time to exercise or look after yourself. So people do need, as a leader, you as a role model, A, and B, to check in with them regularly to see how are they actually doing and how are they feeling. So these 20-minute or 15-minute coffee chats per week are absolutely critical to just check in. How are you doing? How are you feeling? What's frustrating you? How can I remove that bottleneck for you? And also, these are not task related conversations about operational tasks and how are you doing and are you on head with projects. These are really ones where you are bringing in compassion as a leader and human care for your fellow employee to ask them how they are doing, or team member, whichever word you prefer, and to find from your heart to go, how are you doing? And I'm here for you, knowing that you as a leader are very often experiencing and can resonate with what a person is going through. Tip number 3 is about creating new norms and behaviors within your team. You are most probably going to be working a lot on digital platforms. So, using a lot of engagements and not face to face interaction to have meetings, to stay collaborated, to motivate each other and work together. It's a totally different energy and it requires different norms and behaviors. So, what was acceptable prior to COVID when you walked into your team meetings is now changed, and we need to bring in new norms. So a example might be that a norm is when you go into a team meeting that the cameras of all participants have to be on so that you could read each other's body language and check in where everybody is, because you still can pick up a lot on a person's body language even on camera. Another one could be that you maybe just put on the cameras to say hi to everybody and then leave them off. But my recommendation is to have them on throughout the meeting because it enhances participation versus people withdrawing and perhaps doing something else in the meantime. So that's just a example of a norm that needs to be perhaps addressed or changed. Another one is how do we manage each other's downtime or when one person wants to work and doesn't want to work? How do we respect that? And what is our response time on emails or certain things? So, is an email, for example, a response time of 24 hours is acceptable? And if you're sending me a WhatsApp, that means it's really critical and you need a response from me within 1 or 2 hours. Are those new norms? And if yes, do you adhere to them? Do you stop sending emails to each other at a certain time in the evening, be that 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock? And if you do decide to work later because that's your preferred time and when your energy is at the highest, then do you expect your team members to reply? Or when they receive them, knowing I can actually reply to this tomorrow. So, those are norms I'm talking about that need to be actually articulated and agreed on as a team and then apply them. However, hold each other equally accountable when they are not being honored. Because it's no use saying you're going to do this and not doing that. Then you are creating double standards, which creates a lot of conflict for people, confusion, and then disengagement. So that is not something we want to work towards. Tip number 4, and this is really something that is becoming very prevalent, I guess, in the working place and something very dear to my heart is to make sure that people are not in a burnout zone or moving towards burnout. And that can definitely be prevented when you have those 20-minute coffee chats with people because you'll pick it up where a person is. And secondly, you can also do it through the norms I've just discussed because we can't be working machines who are on all the time, 24 hours. We need rest and recovery time because otherwise we will get to the point of burnout. And burnout is not a naughty badge where you go, it's something to strive for and I'm proud to achieve it. It is something to work against, and it means setting rules and boundaries. And for yourself, most probably self discipline to adhere to it. But if we don't manage the burnout as a leader, then we start creating totally different challenges within the work environment because the knock on effect could be a huge increase in absenteeism or perhaps even worse, mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, and the feeling of overwhelm, fear, or perhaps even the imposter syndrome. So, make sure you manage each other's burnout, but as a leader, also manage yours and look out for each other. Create a buddy system, check in with each other. And if you are tired and exhausted, sometimes just taking half a day or a day out does miracles for one another. Tip 4 Tip 5 for the hybrid leader is to develop empathy. And the challenge with empathy, I suppose, right now is that we want to bring in that level of humanity into the workplace, that level of kindness, that compassion, and really caring for one another. However, how do you balance empathy and accountability in the same sentence? Not always easy because you want to really care for somebody, but there comes a time where it's okay, you need to deliver on these tasks and what's happening. So there is a quick or a difficult balancing act for leaders to really bring in empathy and accountability. Again, the empathy is used a lot in those 20-minute coffee chats. bring them in there. Show that human compassion and that caring for the individuals. And then perhaps when you do your town hall meetings or your weekly check-ins or your morning check-ins with the team where you're talking about productivity and performance, you are more on the scale of accountability. But it is bringing in both equally, not letting somebody off the hook. So giving them time sometimes to sort out what needs to be sorted out and caring, but then also giving them a time frame on when either something needs to be completed. And if the person does need more time because something has happened in their family or in their personal lives, then it is being fair as a leader and removing the task from them, redelegating it, or finding a different solution. So be empathetic then and perhaps be proactive in managing it. Don't leave that pressure on that person when you can see that they need that. So, those are really the 5 hybrid leadership tips I want to leave you with. To summarize them, the first one is communication, and that remains critical. And as I said, dial it up to 12 times. The second one is the coffee chats. Try and book them into your diary, make them part of your regular schedule, and they become appointments to respect and honor that can't just be moved easily. The third one is establish new hybrid working norms and behaviors that will bring out the best in your team. Be proactive in creating them and not figuring them out as we go along. The fourth one was really monitor each other's level of burnout and assist each other to make sure that it doesn't escalate. And the fifth and last one was to balance empathy and accountability in the workplace. Those are the 5 hybrid leadership tips I want to leave you with. And I thank you sincerely for being part of this first nuts and bolts of leadership live stream. Next week, we are going to cover another topic, which is going to be how kindness can save your business. So that is what's going to be the topic for next week. And I hope you will be joining us there as well. Thank you so much for connecting with us, and I look forward to seeing you in a week's time. Take care. Bye.